This visualization tool will change your life. This is Vision 4X and is co-created by drum and bass legends Noisia. Using a visualization tool can make or break a mix. It can also be the missing link in figuring out sound design. However, when presented to us, many of us don't know how to use these tools. For example, I didn't know how to use a phase and correlation meter until I did this video. And now I can't go in a mixing session without having one. So today, I'm going to be showing you how you can use visualization tools to help you in your sound design and mixing. Throughout this session, I'll be using Vision 4X, which is super intuitive and thoughtfully designed. Check the link below if you're interested in learning more about this tool. It's available today at Plugin Boutique for a discounted price. By the way, my name is Stranger, and my mission is to help you succeed in music production. If you want to see more videos like these, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so here is Vision 4X. Essentially, it is a visualizer plugin and it was developed with the help of Noisia. So there are 5 visualizers here to help you with your audio editing or mixing or even sound design. On the top left is the Spectrogram, and then on over here to the right is a frequency bar graph, and then we have a waveform on the bottom left, and then we have peak meters and RMS meter in the middle here, and then we have phase and correlation meters on the bottom right. So the views here can be customized. You can use this little crosshair in the middle. You can hide certain views, very useful. Also, you can rotate the views. If you want to see the frequency bar graph horizontally, then you can rotate it in the settings here. There's a number of settings here which you can customize your view, and it's super powerful because it allows you to customize the view based on the frequencies and also levels that you need for your specific track or application. Alright, so let's talk about the spectrogram first and how we can use it to help us in our audio application. So most of us are used to seeing a waveform which displays your audio against 2 dimensions, which is your amplitude over time. The benefit of a spectrogram is it's able to display 3 dimensions. So to read a spectrogram, the 3 dimensions are the frequency, which runs on the y-axis from bottom to top. So low frequencies are on the bottom and the high frequencies are on the top. And then you have time from left to right, and then the color of each frequency band, and then the amplitude of each frequency band is indicated by the color. So based on the color map that you choose, and you can use different color maps in the settings here based on what would help you identify frequencies here. So spectrogram is especially useful for identifying issues such as a noise or a hum or even feedback, because those kind of sounds can be indicated in the spectrogram by a highlighted color here, and sometimes it can be shown as a line running across your spectrogram, which shows that there's a frequency running across the entire track, which may not belong. And so I have an amen break here, and I deliberately added some hum in the background to show you how this is visualized on the spectrogram. Do you hear that hum in the background? Well, on this visualizer, we can kind of see that there's a line here that's consistently running through the sample. It can be a little more visible if you change the color map, maybe use a different color setting. The heat map tends to be a good choice for identifying such issues because those type of frequencies tend to be pronounced with this color setting. Now you may have to change the map curve or bias towards the higher or lower frequencies to identify the issue. We can use this option here and kind of pronounce the visualizer to identify those issues. So I'm bringing the curve slope down so we can identify, and you can see that now there's a red line that runs around 100 hertz. We can also adjust the bias towards either the low or high frequencies to kind of pronounce that. And now that's a little more visible. We can maybe maximize this view so we can see that there's a line here running 100 hertz. It looks like there might be something around here, and you can see on the bottom we can see that this is 155 hertz down here, and potentially there's something here that runs across as well. Looks like that's around 200 hertz. Again, I just played the waveform again, yes, and that 100 hertz is running across consistently. Also here at around 150, and then up here there's all seems to be a kind of a yellow line. Seems to be something running across this frequency here. So, and then what you can do is you can pull up an EQ. I'm using the Kirchhoff EQ from 3Body here. It's just a nice little tool for EQing that I've been using recently. And I've notched out those 3 frequencies, so we can hear it before and after. So you can hear more or less it's removed that hum. Of course, it's not exact. We have better tools to remove hums these days. However, this is more to show you how you can use the spectrogram to identify noise issues. And when you've identified that issue, perhaps you can pull up a better tool to remove that problem frequency. Here's just one more example. Here's a jungle vocal, and actually it's a vocal that we'll be including in a new sample pack coming out soon. Stay posted for that. Let's check this out.
Big up all massive, big up all crew, that's how we do it.
And this time we can actually look at the waveform in the bottom, and it can actually show you issues as well. So we can see around here it goes red. So we can hear that there's some feedback if you listen to the word.
Big up all massive, big up all crew, that's how we do it. Big up all massive, big up all crew, that's how we do it.
If you listen to the word, this is how we do it. It sounds like there is some feedback, a microphone feedback there. It starts at this red point, but the resonant frequency trails down. So looking at the heat map here, it actually happens in this red area here. And we can actually use the range here to kind of zone in on it, right? We can also limit the decibels to a certain threshold to really pinpoint it, right? We can see it's around here. It's around 4,800 hertz. So what we can do again is pull up an EQ, and this time I'm using a dynamic EQ so that when it hits over that threshold, then it ducks it down, right? So here's before.
Big up all massive, big up all crew, that's how we do it. Big up all massive, big up all crew, that's how we do it.
All right, so it catches that frequency. All right, onto the frequency bar graph, and I really like this part of this tool. First thing you can do is you can change the number of bars shown. So if you want a more macro view to identify more general issues in the mix, you can just bring it down here so you can see just general frequency areas. You can also increase the bar amount for more precision up to the max point, where then it becomes a line graph, and that's super handy as well. That's just the first bit of it. Here's the icing on the cake. So over here there's a reference section, and I really love what they did here is that they've provided references for different genres. So I believe what they did was they took a pool of tracks from each genre and tried to measure the frequency profile and get an average for each subgenre. So you have a frequency profile for ambient music, for example, and this is what it would look like. You have a max and min line showing, which shows where your frequencies generally should be playing through in your mix. Let's try, for example, here's modern pop, here's techno, of course we have jungle. All right, so here's the graph for jungle, and this gives you a guideline on how your mix fares compared to the industry standard, and then you can adjust your mix. Perhaps there's not enough bass, or maybe the mids are lacking, or it's too high, so now you can adjust it. And we can see our mix here. It's playing pretty much standard. Maybe some of the mids could be lacking, so we could boosts up the mids here, right? So I find this section of the bar graph super helpful if you're in the mixing stage and even the mastering stage. I could find this very helpful. So another cool function of the frequency graph is you can link it to the color map. So then we can identify resonant frequencies that may be causing an issue. And I have a track here by my friend Chainsaw. It's called Battery. I believe it's coming out later in the year or next year. I'm just doing some mixing and mastering for this track. I thought it'd be a good example. So in this track, there's some pads that are causing some issues in the master because there's some resonant frequencies that are causing the pad to kind of clip and distort, right, when I add the limiter on. So listen to the pad here. And notice how this frequency is yellow here. And then we have some frequencies here that are blinking as well. It's kind of a yellow-green. And we can also change the view of this graph to identify this a little more closely. Let's change it to a line graph. You can see there are issues here around the 400 to even 450 area, and then there's some frequencies over here at the 565 area. Let's bring it back to the line chart. So you can see it's right there. And you see how the pad is distorting. So again, we can pull up an EQ and then just notch those frequencies out. And that sounds much cleaner now. By the way, I'll just show you the drop of this track. It's a pretty dope Amen jungle tune. So shouts out to Chainsaw for this track. Dope tracks coming out soon. But yes, you can use this to identify key frequencies, issues in the mix, and then notch it out. Super handy. Another really cool thing you can use the frequency map for is in sound design. For example, if you're designing a snare or you're EQing a break, you can use it to identify the resonant frequency that you may want to boost or attenuate. So listening to this break, we can hear this ringing, kind of this higher harmonic in the snare. And sometimes we may want to boost it to kind of create a more resonant snare. And we can use this frequency map as clues to which frequencies to pull up. So I see at the 500 area, it blinks a couple times. And also the 1K area blinks when the snare hits. So those could be clues to boosting those frequencies. It's around this 1.18 area. So with our EQ, I boosted those frequencies, that 500 and the 1.1K area, to really boost that ringing, just to hear it a little more pronounced. I believe in tracks such as Paradox, Certain Sound, you can hear the Amen when it gets distorted. Paradox intentionally boosts these type of frequencies and it distorts the signal to make it sound really squeaky and crushed. So if we add some distortion over this, you can hear those frequencies get crushed. You hear how that snare kind of squeaks? And that could be desired or undesired, but this is just showing you creative choices that you can make using this tool. Alright, let's look at the waveform area. So the waveform area is also very useful because it is also linked to the color map. So if you play a sample such as a kick, this is very useful because you can then analyze the shape and frequencies of a kick. So essentially what it does is it will show color, or it was a lighter color when there is higher frequencies in the area, and the lower frequencies are represented by a darker color. So the transient of this kick is shown by this light blue. Here's another way to look at it. So let's play a sub-only kick. And then let's add a hi-hat on top. And see it, the hi-hat is shown in yellow here. And then we can add a snare on top. Essentially what this is useful for is you can identify the length of that transient. Perhaps you have a kick sample with maybe a hi-hat or high frequency that's embedded in the kick. You can see where that lies, and you can use tools to kind of shorten that or duck it if you like. Another cool function of the waveform is you can increase the headroom value, and this is useful because you can see if there are any transients or peaks that hit over the zero line. And you can see, of course, the orange peaks are over that headroom, that zero line, and we may want to adjust that in the mix. So very helpful, because if you were to send this to the mix and you clip it or limit it, this could cause issues in your master. It could cause clipping or distorting. It's a very handy tool. And then we have the peak and RMS meters here. The first two are the peaks for the left and right, and then RMS for the left and right on the third and fourth bar here. So RMS is something sometimes we producers overlook, but it's a very useful metric because it can give us the average volume of our track as opposed to the peak, right? Sometimes we want to know the general loudness of the track, and RMS is a good measure. You can take other tracks, reference tracks, and compare it and see how your tracks fares in terms of loudness. Finally, we have the phase and correlation meters here, and this one I've overlooked for many years. I didn't know how to use it, and I did some research, and actually it's very useful, and it's actually critical if you're mixing and mastering, because for one, the correlation meter, the way this works is it shows if your signal, your left and right signal, if your stereo signal is going out of phase. Essentially, if this line, this dot here is in the negative area, it's showing that certain sounds are going out of phase. But generally, if your mix hovers between the 0 to 1 area, then it means your stereo signal is in phase. There are no issues. This is especially helpful if you're mixing or mastering down for vinyl records. Typically, you really want to make sure it's not going into this negative value. Also, you may have sub-bass sounds that may be going out of phase, and this is an issue when you're playing a track on a mono system, such as a club system, where it flattens the left and right. And the moment it flattens a left and right signal that's out of phase, then you'll have phasing issues. The bass, if you have a sine wave and it has correlation issues, then bass will phase in and out. You'll get some pulsing, and you want to avoid that. So this is why this is helpful. It'll show you if you have any issues here. So this is the correlation meter, and this is the phase meter, and this shows us the stereo depth of your track, what's happening between the left and right. Essentially, if you have energy going from left and right, then you have a healthy signal. Up and down is the amplitude. I'll show you a cool example to demonstrate how you can use this tool. So here I have Serum and simply playing a sine wave. And let's see how it shows up on the correlation meter. First and foremost, notice that the phase meter is showing 1, so it's completely perfectly in phase, meaning there are no phase issues. Also, when there's a straight vertical line, it also means your left and right are perfectly in phase. Now, watch what happens when I move the panning. Let's pan the sine all the way to the left. Okay, so if sounds on the left are on this diagonal line, the left diagonal line, and let's pan it to the right. And it sounds perfectly on the right, our diagonal line on the right side, right? Now let's bring this back to the left. And then let's introduce a second sine wave. Now this one, I'm going to change the phase so it starts at the very beginning, where this one, it starts in the middle. So they're completely opposite. So when this one goes down, like this valley, the oscillator B goes up the mountain, right? I'll just solo the B. So it's a perfect line on the right, perfect line on the left. So look at the correlation meter. It's giving us a reading of -1, which means our audio is completely negatively correlated. And then we have a horizontal line, which also indicates that our sound is negatively correlated perfectly. Now, to demonstrate how phasing could be an issue, so remember oscillator A is completely on the left, oscillator B is completely on the right, and both waveforms exactly the same. The only difference is oscillator B is perfectly negatively correlated. So when you flatten the signal to mono, they cancel out. Notice how the sound is completely silent. There might be a little hum here, but essentially that bass disappears. And that's what happens to your bass on a sound system. If you have phasing issues with your low frequencies, when you're on a mono system, those bass frequencies on the left and the right are going to cancel each other out, and that's why you have phasing issues. So here's another cool way to demonstrate this trait. Let's just use one oscillator, oscillator A. Let's increase unison mode to 2, so now there's 2 waveforms. And now increase the detune. Notice on the correlation meter, it hovers above and over 0, which means it's phasing in and out. Interesting to see that it's also a circle here on the phase meter. As we increase the detune, it changes the shape. Very interesting. Now in Serum, it actually plays your unison mode in stereo. So what we can do is go into the global and decrease the stereo and see what happens. Okay, and now the bass is actually phasing in and out. Now we flatten the signal here in Serum, which means the left and the right are playing the exact same signal, which is why we have a value of 1 here. But you can see now it goes up and down, which means the bass is going up and down. And these kind of issues cannot be identified with a simple waveform. If, for example, we go back to, bring this back to 100, look, our waveform shows as a complete bar, so you can't see that there's an issue with the sine wave here. You can only notice it when we look at the phase meter does. It's hovering over the negative and positive values. It's going kind of crazy over here. Generally it's okay if your track maybe touches the negative once in a while. Essentially your track will have energy in the left and the right, and that's okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much how you use the phase and correlation meters. It's very helpful for mixing issues, and it'll help you identify anything that may be happening funny with your bass. Alright, as a review, let's go through everything we looked over again. We have the spectrogram, which shows us the amplitude and frequency over time, and this is helpful for identifying issues such as a hum or noise or feedback in sound. The bar graph is very handy. For mixing, you can use the reference graphs to ensure your mix is up to industry standard. Also, you can use it to identify resonant frequencies, helpful for sound design. Waveform also has a bunch of very useful functions. Again, it can show the frequency as color here. Also, the headroom parameter allows you to identify anything that pops over 0, so that's very helpful. And of course, we have the phase and correlation meters. Our track here is healthy. It's around the 0 and 1 area, and we have a diverse range of stereo information on the left and right. So our track has nice stereo depth. Essentially, this part gives us tells us how's the stereo depth or stereo image of our track. It's quite healthy. There's some information on the left and right. It's all positively correlated, so no issues with phasing. So our mix is good. All right, so hopefully you can see the benefits of having some visualization tools in your production suite, that you can appreciate how helpful and intuitive Vision 4X, co-designed by Noisia, is. Once again, if you want to learn more and buy Vision 4X, you can check the link below. Whether if you need to identify issues in a mix or you need hints in perfecting your sound design, having proper visualization tools can be the difference, like producing in the dark or being fully illuminated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. All that helps my channel grow. Also, follow me on Instagram and TikTok, where I have additional exclusive content. Anyways, that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks for watching, keep practicing, and I'll see you at the next video. Hey, if you want to support, you can check out my products in the link below. My rollers kit for Ableton is out now, containing 23 modular instruments and over 400 MIDI and audio patterns. Use it to spark creativity for your next track. For the most upfront sounds and bass music, you can grab my gnarly serum pack or wubs and wobbles for Vital. You can also check out my jungle and liquid Ableton production kits. Hint, if you don't have Ableton, you can grab the Wave packs. If you're not ready to buy yet, you can always check out my free products also in the link below. Anyways, always appreciate your support. Have fun creating!